morning, everyone. I'm holding up my tiny little altar menorah because I'm getting ready for tonight's second in the series of Kabbalah degree initiations. It's 7 o'clock tonight. So I'll be seeing many of you there tonight. If you are registered and ready for tonight and belong to the private Facebook group, please feel free to review your first degree initiation tape of it or recording of it before tonight. If you don't have time, that'll be okay. But if you missed it entirely, please review it before we do tonight's session. So, unfortunately, if you haven't been part of the registered program, you won't be able to do it at this late date. So we'll see you all tonight, but we'll repeat it again sometime. Again, we are on another little installment of Ask Babylon, and today we're opening up on the section that's just called Miscellaneous Technical Matters. Abramelin and Holy Awe. Hello, Babylon. This is a great letter. The letter's better than my answer. Well, I finally found my way. I'm sure you'll hear my two somewhat desperate voicemail messages at some point tonight about being lost. And wanted to thank you for receiving me into your home. This is somebody writing after a first Monday night class. I've just begun reading your book, Enochian Vision Magic, and I'm somewhat new to ceremonial magic, certainly in a practical sense. Though I've read, over a span of several decades, a variety of different materials, philosophical, pagan, and otherwise, including Magic Without Tears and some of other Crowley works. Though quite a while ago. And it mostly made my head hurt so much, the same way Kafka's Metamorphosis did the first time I read it. I also am in possession of the Thoth Tarot deck as well as the book, though I've not used them for quite some time. I've discovered an affinity for runes, and have been using those, mostly as of late, and I never have become particularly proficient at correlating cards in a spread, though it is something that I aspire to do. I've ordered the book, and should receive it in a couple of days. Since I don't really know you, and this is my first glimpse of your take on this type of material, I was trying to assess your view on the material covered tonight. I think we were talking about the book of the Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage and the Book of Abramelin. One of the reasons that I've shied away from ceremonial anything is that it involves a whole lot of memorization. Thus, it might not come as a huge surprise that mathematics was not a strong suit, much to my parents' chagrin, who were both exceptionally good at it. And actions done by rote without understanding the resonance somehow echo of emptiness in my mind, which pretty much cuts a swath through most organized religions. I suppose that my fascination with esoterica, and currently the vagaries of ceremonial magic, Enochian or otherwise, is really to understand myself, or rather the world, the universe, and my place in it. And perhaps discover that I have in some minute way a purpose, a bit part in the greater whole. During the course of the reading tonight, you mentioned something about touching the reverence, awe within, touching the reverence/awe within. Seeing that many of us in modern day times do not have the reverence for Godhead that our forebears did. So my question would be, is it possible to practice this form of magic without utilizing the recommended worshipful countenance? I can easily find a loving/compassionate countenance, but less a worshipful one, if that makes sense. I hear the disdain that the originators of the text, Abramelin the Mage, Abraham the Jew, and whoever wrote the Keys of Solomon, hold toward most everyone who is not a true follower of Adonai, discounting all other practices as being invalid, parlor tricks almost. I don't know if you've read the book of Abramelin, but Abraham the Jew spends a whole lot of time, a big section of the first section of the book, saying how he ran into all sorts of phony magicians and people that really didn't worship God right. So, with what appears to be the great familiarity with the purported creator of humanity, how is it that you know that Belial to be a pain in the ass? I think I said that in class. Belial's a pain in the ass. Just wondering. I have only rather recently grasped the role of the fallen angels in mankind's progression, and so question the content of the materials that we are reading in correlation to that. I'm also quite fascinated in their offspring, being genetically linked to the surviving human gene pool, and what effects that might have on us as a race. I've struggled with many biblical concepts over time, read about as long ago or perhaps even farther back as Crowley material, and reconciling and contradicting materials within the scriptures on the nature of God and every other thing therein. I'd love nothing more than to pull up a chair and pour us a nice cup of tea and chat him up. I feel like I'm trying to fit the pieces of a billion-piece puzzle together and can't find the box cover to look for reference. Welcome to the club. I rather undisciplinedly meditate. I occasionally manage to hold my concentration in a disciplined enough manner so as to commune with my guides, which part of me thinks myself daft, even acknowledging them real past the confines of my mind, whatever mind is, but quite frequently feel rather overwhelmed with a massive amount of esoteric information available for consumption, some of it contradictory in nature, and some of it rather dubious at best. I often have, quote, I can't believe I ate the whole thing moments, and of course feel like falling back into a state of semi-comatose sleep is preferable to trying to digest it all. So I guess I've been on a mission to find the proverbial bottle of spiritual Pepto-Bismol. Well, now I've carried on, and most of this must sound like so much gibberish. I will stop here and hope that some of my thoughts make sense and that you might have some insights. Thanks again and best regards, name withheld. Isn't that a great letter? Dear name withheld, glad you finally made it to Monday night magic class. These are wonderful questions and observations, and exactly the kind of issues that I wanted this class series to bring to the surface. And hopefully, by the time we're through, many of these things will be a little clearer. You ask, is it possible to practice this form of magic without utilizing the recommended worshipful countenance? Maybe I over or understated the concept. I can imagine when the great naturalist John Muir first hiked into Yosemite and saw the soft orange light of the rising sun hit the summit of one of those magnificent peaks. He just about crapped his jeans with stunned, wordless awe. It was a transcendent moment, an epiphany, an expansion of consciousness in which he somehow realized a greater reality and his place in it. Or just imagine you're awakened in the middle of the night by a strange light coming from your living room, and you quietly creep out to discover Buddha sitting serenely on the carpet. And in the glow of his presence, you're enveloped by that same infinite joy, sorrow, compassion, love, bliss, and understanding his illumination represents. Are these experiences, or 1,000 other scenarios of worshipful countenance you could dream up, are they beyond your ability to imagine? My guess is your answer is no. And to make magic of this nature work, one needs to develop the power of imagination that intense, and the ability to put oneself in that frame of mind at precisely the right moment. Using the metaphors of magic, you can't be in awe of the great whatever it is if you can't be in awe of the great whatever it is. Then the spirits, the forces that do all the heavy lifting in the universe, they will be unable to be in awe of you. The Book of Abramelin the Jew achieves this attitude with what I consider to be a naive, superstitious spiritual worldview. In a way, he's lucky not to have modern science and cosmology and, in places, common sense complicate his access to his devotional weapons. One does not have to understand how a gun works in order to pick it up and shoot it. We, on the other hand, must poke around for a more rational way to get ourselves there. Please forgive all the parentheticals. It's early and my flow of consciousness is popping my words out parenthetically. My best, Babylon. Okay, I'll go on with another one if you don't mind. This one's a question on the wand or the sword. Dear Babylon, I've been finding your books are indeed treasure troves of information and not simply beginner's books, as many think to think. I was hoping you could clarify one quick point, however. You state, I believe in your illustrated Goetia, forgive me if I'm wrong, if I've been reading 4 of your books at once or close together, that the magician should use the wand rather than the sword. I'm a bit perplexed by this, as it seems the sword is traditional, and it seems even with the OTO, it is the tool of choice. Okay. Could you please elaborate on why you suggest the wand over the sword? You state that the sword is useful for intimidation, but I really believe that there was more to it than that. Also, it would seem if the sword was indeed useful for intimidation, then using your methods, the sword would be the preference. I come to this conclusion based on the seemingly hostile manner in which you deal with Goetic demons. In other words, my way or I'll kill you. I've never said that. And lack of equal consideration, except on your own terms. I hope you can clarify this, as even after additional study, I'm still perplexed. I'm about to embark on my very first Goetic work using a structured format, so I'm definitely interested in making it as effective as possible. Would really appreciate any insights you can provide, and I also want to personally thank you for your hard work and effort and let you know that next to Crowley, I consider your work to be the most important to be familiar with as a Thelemite or even an occultist in general. Name withheld. Hi, name withheld. Please don't be too perplexed. In fact, don't be perplexed at all. When perplexed, use your instincts. And in this case, your instincts are very good. I conjure with the wand. It is my will. I'm going to sneeze, I think. Hang on. Maybe it passed. Maybe it isn't. Thank you, dear. Well, that's a first. I hope that's one of the few bodily functions we'll be seeing on these morning shows. Okay. I conjure with the wand. It is my will. It is the weapon of my chai. That's C-H-I-A-H, my chai. The part of my soul that is my ultimate self. Identical, or at least the miniature version of the Supreme Consciousness. It is the highest weapon I pull off the shelf, representing the highest me I am. And that's what I want to show the beasties first. But you're right. Solomonic magic is a formula of intimidation. And whenever I need to reconjure a disobedient spirit, I do indeed use the sword. I even use the sword to dangle the burning box over the flame in the triangle when things get ugly. That's just how I'm comfortable in doing things. It's like, look here, Mr. Demon. This is my true divine self, the wand, who conjures you into the triangle. Not my mind, the sword, who conjures you into the triangle. Not my mind, the sword, which is 90% of the time it wanders all over the place. Not my heart, the cup, that 90% of the time blinds my common sense. Not my body, the disc, that fucks with me most of the time. But the real me. If you feel comfortable using the sword to represent the real you for the initial conjuration, please do so with impunity and full confidence. For you, it is the equivalent of me using the wand. Please always keep in mind that your magic is your magic and that the rationale for how things work should be done ultimately is yours. If your operation succeeds, it'll be because it was truly your will that it succeeds. If it blows up in your face, it will be because of a temporary flaw in your will and not because you used your weapons differently than Babylon. Good luck and give 'em hell, Babylon. Okay, I think that's where we'll close today. Tomorrow, we'll read a letter about I'm being magically attacked. So until tomorrow, we've got a big night ahead of us, or a lot of us do, don't we? Continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Go out there and give them hell. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.